It was my birthday, and my mother-in-law gave me 2 vouchers to Turkey, for me and my wife, but with the condition that she would go with her. She even showed me the 3rd voucher. We started to thank her, and she said she had her own interest in this gift. Turns out she had just broken up with her boyfriend and needed a distraction, but she didn't want to go alone. She has always been full of surprises, and this was another example of her spontaneity. Despite the awkwardness of the situation, we couldn't help but admire her resilience and her ability to turn things around so quickly. She was always a force of nature, someone who knew how to make the best out of a bad situation, and this occasion was no exception. My mother-in-law is one of a kind. Olivia, my wife, was born prematurely, and when you see them together, you'd think they were sisters. It's hard to tell which one is older. They have the same infectious laugh and youthful energy. They both have a glow about them that draws people in, and when they are together, they are a formidable duo. Disappointed in love at a young age, my mother-in-law never married, but she changed men like gloves, and they were no ordinary men. They were always powerful, successful, and charming. She had a magnetic personality and attracted men who were equally wonderful. She had a good career and now enjoyed her own pleasures, traveling, dining out, and doing whatever she pleased. She lived life on her own terms and never apologized for it. A week before we left, Olivia returned from work and informed us that her seaside holiday was unfortunately canceled. Management had offered her the promotion she was looking forward to, but she had to go to another city to finalize an important contract. She couldn't pass up this opportunity, even if it meant missing our trip. I told her I wouldn't go without her, but she insisted I go. She knew how much I was looking forward to the break and didn't want me to miss it because of my work commitments. She assured me that she trusted me completely and that I deserved a holiday after all the hard work I had put in over the past few months. So we flew to Turkey, and my mother-in-law and I checked into a luxury hotel. It was a stunning place with a grand lobby, marble floors, and gorgeous chandeliers. It seemed like we had entered another world filled with luxury and elegance. As we headed for our rooms, she caught my hand and said, "Honey, everyone deserves their own pleasure. I'll keep my nose out of your business. And you do the same for me." "Okay." She patted my cheek playfully and left for her room, swaying her curves seductively. I didn't say anything back, feeling a mixture of amusement and confusion. To be honest, I liked this turn of events, but I remembered that I was married and that my mother-in-law was around, so I tried to keep my composure. In the evening, I decided to take it easy. I ordered dinner in the room, went out on the veranda overlooking the sea, and drank with pleasure, feeling like an oligarch. The view was amazing. The moonlight reflected off the waves and the light breeze rustled the palm trees. The sound of the waves was soothing, and I could feel the stress drifting away as I sat back and savored the moment. There was a knock on the door. I thought it was room service and called out to them. But instead it was my mother-in-law, Hannah, standing there with a bottle of whiskey in her hand, energetic, tanned, and absolutely stunning. Her smile was dazzling. She was wearing a flowing dress that emphasized her figure, and her hair was perfectly styled. Without waiting for an invitation, she elegantly sat down in the chair across from me. "Forgot about your poor relative, huh? Where's Olivia?" she teased. I knew she hated it when I addressed her too formally, but I couldn't resist pushing her buttons. "Oh, hush," she wrinkled her nose adorably. "Why are you sitting here alone? Where's your blonde mermaid?" I looked away, slightly embarrassed, and she laughed, patting me on the shoulder as if to comfort me. The rest of the evening went wonderfully. We talked a lot, about all sorts of things. She told me stories from her youth, her adventures, and even some heartbreaks. Hannah proved to be quite an interesting conversationalist, full of wit and charm. She knew how to draw you in, making you feel like you were the only person in the world. She talked about her travels, the places she saw, and the people she met. Her stories were engaging, filled with humor and nostalgia. Behind her voice and animated expression, you could forget about the world around you. We laughed, shared secrets, and even talked about Olivia. She spoke fondly of her daughter, expressing pride in her accomplishments. It was past midnight when I suggested we split up, given our early morning flight. But Hannah had other plans. Without saying a word, she gracefully stood up, looked me straight in the eye, and then, without hesitation, sat on my lap and began kissing my cheeks. It was like an electric shock, a wave of passion that swept over me. From that moment on, I lost control of myself. The warmth of her body, the softness of her lips, all of it overwhelmed me. My mind was torn between the thrill of the moment and the guilt of betraying my wife. But in that moment, all rational thought seemed to vanish, replaced by a deep, primal desire I couldn't suppress. We were lost in the moment, the world around us disappearing as we surrendered to our emotions. Her hands rested on my shoulders, and I felt her breath on my neck. The sensation was intoxicating, and I couldn't resist. The next morning passed like a blur. We hardly spoke as we drove to the airport, both of us immersed in our own thoughts. There was an unspoken understanding between us. We couldn't take back what had happened the night before, but we couldn't dwell on it either. There was an air of tension between us, a mixture of unspoken words and emotions we couldn't express. As we boarded the plane, Hannah smiled weakly at me, but there was still a hint of mischief in her eyes. I couldn't help but wonder what this trip would mean for our relationship going forward, whether it would be the beginning of something new or just a fleeting moment of passion. As the plane took off, I stared out the window, mentally going over the events of the night before. I thought about Olivia and how much I loved her, and guilt began to settle in me. But some part of me couldn't forget how Hannah had made me feel alive, wanted, and completely enchanted. I knew I'd stepped over the line, but I couldn't deny that it was all exciting. Hannah, sitting next to me, seemed calm, her eyes closed as she leaned back in her chair. There was something so confident about her, like she had no regrets. I wondered if she hadn't planned this all along, if this trip was her way of getting closer to me. Over the next few days in Turkey, we continued to explore beautiful cities, visit historical sites, and enjoy the luxurious amenities of our hotel. We acted as if nothing had happened, maintaining a semblance of normalcy. But there were moments, fleeting glances, a wave of the hand, a shared smile, that hinted at an unspoken connection between us, as if we had a secret that only the two of us knew, and it brought us strangely, inexplicably close. Sometimes I'd catch her gaze filled with something I couldn't define: desire, curiosity, maybe even affection. And each time my heart sank and I felt that very pull toward her. One evening we were on the veranda again, just as we had been that first evening. The sea stretched out before us, the sky colored in shades of orange and pink as the sun set on the horizon. Hannah poured us both a glass and we sat in silence for a while, just savoring the beauty of the moment. "You know," she finally said, her voice soft, "life is too short to live with regrets." She looked at me, her eyes searching mine. "What happened between us? I don't regret it. Not one bit." I swallowed hard, not knowing what to say back. Some part of me wanted to tell her that I felt the same way, that I couldn't bring myself to regret it. But at the same time, I knew I had to find a way to make things right with Olivia. As we sat there, the tension between us palpable, I realized that this trip had changed everything. It had opened a door that couldn't be closed, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for what was on the other side. But one thing I was certain of was that my relationship with Hannah would never be the same again. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe for more stories.